Okay, and then the other is, could you give me a thumbs up if you see the presentation first slide? If you're online, are you seeing the transition from school to adulthood? Excellent.
I see it.
All right, awesome. So lastly, oh, Pam can't see it. Pam can't see it. Pam, you don't see our first slide, is that correct? You're muted, so you need to unmute.
All I need is, all I see is the transition from school to adulthood parent presentation.
No, that's okay. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
And then it'll go from there. Yep, thank you. So I'm going to explain, you're experiencing an owl camera here in the room. So you will see if you're, have your screen set to see every participant. When you look at the one that says LCBDD, the camera is going to be changing and turning toward the person in the room that's talking. So that will be a little interesting, but, and then we are recording already, right? So that's, and we're gonna get started. So we'll do some introductions. I am Julie O'Neill, Transition and Employment Supervisor for the Lake County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Furthermore, Transition Specialist. And Nicole Fisher, I'm also a Transition.Services SSA for the County Board.
And I'm Katie Debly, Employment Navigator for the Lake County Board.
So we're going to begin the presentation. We're going to cover tonight transition from school to adulthood. And this is geared towards parents. We are all out of the Service and Support Administration, SSA department of the Lake County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Okay. Okay, please hold. Okay, we're back. Okay, so just remember that you're on camera. Actually, when we're recording, you are not being recorded. I don't think, I'm not going to guarantee that. Just remember that you're on camera, and it could be distracting if you are moving around and things like that. So you do have the option to turn your camera off. We're going to keep you muted, but there'll be a time that we can open up those microphones to ask questions if you'd like, but you could add questions or comments to the chat as we go along. And again, the session is being recorded. So here is our full staff out of our department within the SSA department. So everything at the Lake County Board starts with intake and eligibility. We have 2 intake SSAs. 0 to 5 years old would be Dawn Bastuli. Anyone 6 years and older, you might know the name Dottie Croyle. And then once you're eligible for services, when you are approaching needing services from us, you might have a wait list conversation for Melissa Mucciaroni. If your individual or your loved one has some behavior or mental health diagnoses as well as developmental disabilities, you might interact with Robin Jenkins. Again, I'm Julie O'Neill, the supervisor in this area. Again, you met Brenda and Nicole, who are transition SSAs and would attend your IEPs. And then employment navigation is Katie Debly, and she would attend IEPs and meetings for those students who are on the path to employment. So we talked about it all starts with eligibility. So we want to make sure that your students at the age of 6 and then at 16 have had an assessment through our office that is connected to the state of Ohio. So the co-EDI at the age of 6 or the O-EDI at the age of 16 to redetermine eligibility. And once your student is eligible, then you can tap into all kinds of services. Transition, having Brenda or Nicole attend those IEP meetings, helping you to know what life will look like after high school, those kinds of things. Katie with employment navigation services, job trials, job assessments, wanting to look for a part-time job, going to work and staying at work. Those are available. Family support services is a set of funds that are available to eligible individuals on an annual basis. The maximum an individual would receive in a year would be $1,500. There's an application process, and then you do need to reapply each year. And that contact is Dawn Vestuli. We have a very great relationship with our Recreation Services Department. We can help you or your student become eligible or referred to Recreation Services. And over the last year or and a half, maybe, we have really developed services specific to this transition age group. We're running quarterly meetings, I should call them meetings, quarterly events, celebrations to engage the students and allow them to meet the recreation staff. So we're hosting those 4 times a year. And then outside of that, we have wonderful recreation brochure, and they have started to add services and options for students who are 14 to 22. So our upcoming event is on December 8th. It'll be here in Building C on campus, and it's going to be a winter wonderland. So,
There's a flyer.
okay. Excellent. So how many are eligible and have been through the OOD process and past that?
Yes.
Over 16? Okay.
No, Adam's not over 16.
Okay, so.
Adam's only 14.
Okay, so many of our students become eligible at age of 6. Again, at 16, we have to make sure we're paying attention to that timeline and presenting documentation and having a conversation with Dottie to become re-eligible or redetermined eligible, I should say. So to be able to do that, you have to have a documented qualifying diagnosis of a developmental disability made by a qualified professional. So that's your medical staff. An individual must have a physical or mental impairment other than just mental illness. The onset of that disability, these are all students, but must have happened prior to the age of 22. This disability is likely to continue indefinitely, and you must live here in Lake County to get Lake County services. In order to do this, you're going to need the verification of that qualifying diagnosis within 1 year. So oftentimes you can go back to your doctor and they can sign off on something. We use the current IEP and ETR as appropriate. Dottie will help you walk through that. If there's guardianship issue or custodial documents, you'll have to have those at the ready. Verification of date of birth, verification of social security number, your insurance cards. And timelines have changed. So when you receive that letter for the OED right after your child turns 16, the timetable starts ticking, and your letter will indicate how much time you have to respond with these documents. And the documents will be listed in the letter. And then if you don't respond, you have another short window of 15 days to respond. And then the case is closed because you didn't respond. We can always help you to get that back up and going again, but the best case is that you would just gather these documents and respond to the letter in a timely fashion to ensure that eligibility continues. We have developed a transition services statement that we use with our school district. So a school district might know of an individual that isn't currently eligible for our services, but they want to kind of help open the case. So they're going to have you sign a transition services statement, a release of information, and then they're going to provide us the most recent IEP and ETR to get that ball rolling. So if that's someone who hasn't been connected to our services or isn't currently eligible, we partner with the school districts using this process. This is what it looks like. So is this when, okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Nicole. This is when your transition team would join you at your team meetings.
Great. Hi, everyone, it's Nicole. So we're going to start focusing and talking about transition planning and the IEP. So I know everybody's been to a lot of IEP meetings, and IEPs are the individualized education plan through the school. And that is the document that focuses on all of those goals and objectives and activities that the students will be participating in to gain skills and grow in their independence, education, and employment. So at age 14, the transition planning starts. So that's a new section of the IEP. It's section 5. And it'll focus on 3 areas, which are independent living, education and training, and employment. So that will come up a lot as our students are coming into that age of 14, talking about all of those focus areas. And we know students are all different, just as every person is different. So all of the activities in this transition plan, they're all different and individualized based off of the individual's specific needs. And also what their goals are for the future. So the way that teams develop these goals are to do assessments and determine students' preferences, interests, needs, and strengths. You might have heard the acronym PINS. So the team at school will talk about the great things that the individuals can do, what their needs are, where they need some supports, a lot of their skills and strengths. So that's what the transition plan focuses on in those 3 areas. And that's done every IEP year. So a lot of information can be gathered from all different entities. It's not only the school team, it's all these members of the team that we're going to talk about for the last part of this presentation. And they'll put together all this great information, and it'll be a great planning tool for that young adult to start developing those skills for their transition to adulthood. So this is a nice visual. It's like the infinity symbol. So it's talking about all of these things that can play a part in the transition planning. And the infinity just symbolizes that it doesn't all have to happen all at once, but it can kind of be a continuum of different activities at different times. So annual goals will be thought about, and transition services, also the student's vision, and those assessments that we talked about, those will all play a part in this transition planning process. So that's a good visual. I do have a link to the website as well, but I just kind of put in that visual just to think about all those things as the transition planning section, the transition section happens in the IEP. So here's the big question: who is at the table? So this is our IEP meeting, and everybody's at the table, and boy, look at that really big team. And who are all these members of the team that are all coming together for the IEP and for the student? So we're going to talk about who is on our team. The most important person is the student. So there that student is. And the student's role is communicating what their preferences are, their PINs, preferences, interests, strengths, and needs, what they like, how they learn well, all of the things that they benefit from in the classroom setting. They also participate actively in discussions and meetings, especially at age 14 when we start talking about that transition section. We want the students to play a bigger role in being a participant in their IEP team. So this is when they can express their thoughts and opinions about what their goals and plans are for the future. The next participant in our team is a parent or a guardian, be an advocate, a loved one, a family member, and their role is to support the students. So they're a great advocate. They provide information on the student most of the times. A lot of the times, the parent and the guardian, they know the individual the best. So we love it when there's a great collaboration between the families and the school team in order to promote goals and independence for the young adult. So being actively engaged and participate equally in this process will help develop some really great planning for the individual. And at age 14, we like to plan early. So at age 14, that's when we start to discuss long-term goals. Like what do you really see your child doing? What are they really good at? Where would you like them to participate once school is finished? So starting those conversations, and some may feel that it's early, but planning early is best. Thinking about how they get around in the community, where they want to learn, what strategies work best for them. Thinking about that, having those conversations and embedding it into that transition plan will really help the student be successful and help that planning process go smoothly. The next person at the table is our intervention specialist, our special education teacher, and they provide information on the student's strengths, They write all of the goals and objectives. They do all of the paperwork behind the scenes, creating this IEP document. And they also put together and coordinate all those outside entities and agencies that come together at the IEP meeting. And we'll talk about that in a couple more slides, the other participants at the meeting, but they make those connections for the family, having those discussions about who would you like at the table? Do you want the county board sitting at the table? Do you want somebody else from the community at the table? Maybe related to employment or another support person. So the intervention specialist coordinates all those things and helps plan and have a really good enriching conversation for this young adult. The next person at the table is the general education teacher. So the gen ed teacher assists the intervention specialist in supporting the young adult in the classroom. They may come up with curriculum modifications or accommodations to support the young adult based off of the content standards that are outlined through the Ohio Department of Education. So the gen ed teacher is another participant at the table for those IEP team meetings. They can also collaborate with the intervention specialist to come up with different strategies and help implement those in the classroom setting for the student to be most successful. Another person at the table for the IEP meeting is the district representative or the principal, maybe a school counselor, it depends. Some teams are quite large where there's a lot of participants and some are on the smaller side. So this person from the district will support the staff in implementing all of these strategies. They'll allocate some resources. So if the youngster needs some assistive technology, they'll make sure that the district can accommodate those needs. And they'll also provide information on other activities that the district offers for all of their students. So that's a pretty important person at the table as well. Oh, there you go.
And that's me. Section 1, employment. So not sure if you guys are connected yet with OOD, if you've heard of Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, but they are also an agency provider that might be part of the team. So when a student is on the path to employment or start talking about vocational, typically the school will initiate a referral to OOD. And they will provide services and eligibility for those on the path to employment. They talk about, they can authorize summer youth work experiences, pre-ETS courses, there's community-based work assessments, work adjustments. Some of that terminology may sound familiar, but they are a great resource to have at the table. So a little bit more about OOD. So they have their own eligibility process separate from the county boards. There are vocational rehabilitation counselors, offices located all throughout the state. And so they provide counseling and guidance to individuals with disabilities who are seeking employment, help them choose an employment goal based on their strengths and interests, their capabilities. So they are part of the team and being part of that to really learn more about the student and what their plans are and goals for the future. So having them there is important. So typically if a student is involved with OOD, I come into the picture as the employment navigator. So then when you look at, well, I'm jumping ahead, but so employment first, the ultimate goal of OOD is competitive employment. And so obviously there's many steps on that path. And for some, that's not the ultimate end goal, but for employment first, it's for individuals to have choices and participation in what types of activities they want to be doing, jobs, employment being community-based. So situations located in typical competitive-based, community-based and settings. They receive compensation that is typical on par with their non-disabled counterparts, so competitive employment, and those are jobs that are performed alongside coworkers without disabilities, so in an integrated setting. So that is employment first. And then so part of the other team members that might be at the table, I mentioned myself, so OOD, I kind of go hand in hand with OOD as an employment navigator. So people that are On the path to employment, I'm involved to offer additional support. So also there could be speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. Sometimes if an individual already is enrolled on a waiver, their caseload SSA might be there. The OOD employment provider, the provider that's actually providing the, whether it's the community-based assessments or the pre-EPS courses, they might also be present at the table. So. And then those that are on the path to employment. So we just assume that everyone is competitively employable and that many factors come into play to determine if they're ready for competitive employment. So it's important to include the Lake County Board, myself, OOD, to complete different age-appropriate transition assessments. And then after graduation, there are options to continue working on their vocational skills. I'm sure if you've heard about, at some point, if you've spoken with Brenda or Nicole, you probably have heard about day programs and vocational resources. We have a group employment provider. So those are some programs that offer after they graduate from school, just to continue building those vocational skills. So what is my role? My role is to be part of the team, to offer additional support and resources, to help throughout that planning process, coordinating, kind of monitoring any employment related supports for the individual. So I attend meetings. I have met some of you previously. So we can assist, I assist with education of valuable internet resources, talking about job development, career planning, helping, talk about different career paths, options that are available, provide information and referrals, just linking to different vocational or non-vocational programs, and then just follow along, monitor the plan and progress and check in and just offer any additional supports that might be needed. And so employment navigation is available to individuals that have been determined eligible for services through the county board. And my role starts from the time that they're in high school and they're on that path to employment, and then continues post high school. And then, so my information is listed here. That's the general number, but then you can also email me directly. And then Julie is still another contact as the employment and transition supervisor. So this continuum is a good visualization of basically the path that some people might take as far as, so on the left-hand side would be waiver services. So it starts with a day program, adult day supports. So there's arrows indicating. So on the left, adult day supports, and then you've got some vocational and then supported employment. And then when you start looking at the blue, that's more of when OOD is involved. Competitive employment in the community with job supports. And then just competitively employed, most likely job coaching has faded at that point. So the place on the path to employment, so 4 is somebody who's not really interested in work. 3, if they're a tier 3, it's, interested and you know a little bit more about it. They're not sure. 2 is that they're ready to be looking. They're interested in work and they need supports to help find work. And then 1 is that they're competitively employed. So the big thing to note about the arrows is that you see them going in both directions. And so an individual's path can change at any point. And so it just, at some point they might think that they're ready and then maybe they decide I'm just going to do a day program or vocational program. So it just indicates that, as an individual's life and plans change, that they can move back and forth. And OOD, they will tell you that it's not just a one-stop shop. If we've had people that have opened and closed OOD cases, and it's just, there's no limit on the number of times that a case can be opened. It's all very just individualized and based on the individual's preferences and what works best for them. So, okay. So there is a way, you may have seen this before if you're involved with OOD, it shows you how you can search for providers. These are employment providers. There's the OOD link on this screen. And then from that provider search tool, you can search for the specific service, you can search by county. And then you can review the provider scorecards that tells you a little bit more about the provider. And so we have, as a support to families and individuals that we support and work with, we have helped set up provider interviews, like a quick meet and greet with providers to help you decide who might be the best fit to work with. And so when you're doing those interviews, these are just some questions to have kind of to think about, be prepared. Be prepared to talk about yourself. So what kind of job you want, the amount of money you want to earn, when you're willing to work, talk about your work history. And then just some ideas for provider questions. How will they help you find a job? What do they expect of you? Who will I be working with, and what are the qualifications of your staff? So these are just some, obviously there's many more questions that can be asked, but these are just to give you an idea when you're doing those interviews. Help you choose who you want to work with. And then that comes over Brenda.
So who else is at the table? Well, hopefully one of us, transition specialists, either myself or Nicole. And we're here to be able to provide information resources to people who are eligible for our services, and talk about what's life after high school going to look like, and make sure that you're getting connected to those resources. Okay, this is not the slide I wanted to see right now. So I'm going to skip this one. We're going to come back to it. Yeah, the one that I was looking for was, again, it's just introducing all of us. The little slide that has, it sort of breaks down. I'm going to find it here. It breaks down. Oh, here we go. This is the one I wanted. This kind of tells you which one of us you might be working with. And we all work very closely together. So any one of us would help you with any of your needs. And we often cover for one another. But just to give you the current breakdown of what that looks like. So oftentimes, as far as the introducing to the transition employment services, that would be Julie. And then myself, I'm going to cover mentor schools, Willoughby Eastlake schools, and CARES program. And for Nicole, it's Fairport, Kirtland, Madison, Painesville City, Perry, including PAVE, Riverside schools, including the RAVE program, Wycliffe schools, as well as Broadmoor School. So again, we sort of have split those up between us, but we're all sort of working together. And again, Katie may be a part of that team specifically for individuals who are on the path to employment. So excuse me, moving around here again. So transition services. So the programs were developed for transition services, specifically knowing that it is difficult for individuals as they're beginning to move into adulthood, individuals with disabilities. And what we often refer to as the cliff, so school ends or the bus stops coming, and what are we going to do? So we don't want there to be a cliff at the end of that. We talk about there being a bridge, there, and we're going to help you to move along over that bridge. And that's what we're here to support. So we want to get to know the student early on, so what are those needs going to look like, and how can we help you in that process? So when we start attending meetings early on, as early as 14, we'll participate in IEP meetings, start to talk about that life after school, look for referrals and different things in the community. We're always learning all the time about new resources in the community and sharing those out. And then what's going to happen as far as those adult services. So oftentimes that is a big reason why people do want to connect with the county board, is to ensure that they're connected with funding and things that are necessary for adult services. And something else we would do is just help you to learn a little bit about the programs that are currently out there. And we often say that it's those, it's like kids going off to college. You need to, you don't just wait for the last day of school and head off to college. You go and look and see what kind of day programs are available. Most families realize that there may be some adult day service programs right in their neighborhood, and they just weren't familiar with that. So going and having a look, I think the best way is to really kind of get out there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's see. So again, 14 to 22, there's information again for Nicole and myself. And here's a lot of the things that we do help families to try to learn a little bit more about. A lot of the questions are going to come up in this age group. And so there's some additional resources here. And these are all available also on our website. A couple of the other materials that you may have received already, but there's a lot of different links in there. But guardianship, for instance, is something that people start to give consideration to. Social Security, different things like that, stable accounts, learning about Medicaid, the funding that we talked about before for those services that you want to get connected to for adult services, that you do need to be eligible for Medicaid in order to receive that. So that's something that some families do need to do some planning for. Maybe they need to look at, a stable account or something like that to ensure their Medicaid eligibility. Oh, there's that one again. There we go. This is a timeline. So Julie talked a little bit about the different times that you're going to want to think about doing things. So this is just another resource. This is available also on our website. You may have gotten this. If you do see this on our website, or if you receive that link from Nicole, should be each one of those is where you see the blue underline. Those are hyperlinks, so you can go right to that. So for instance, you'll see like the Social Security or what have you. You click on that, and that's going to take you directly to their website. So this is a nice place to just kind of find those different links for places you might want to, get some more information. But otherwise, it is just a general timeline. So we have a lot of kids that may come to us during early intervention, but maybe families just kind of move out of life. They don't necessarily need any help or resources. And that's where kids start to not necessarily stay connected. So again, when we turn 16, we need to redetermine the eligibility, as we had talked about. So you can see some of the different things that during these timelines, maybe starting to give some consideration to guardianship, or really having those conversations about shared decision-making or supported decision-making for your loved one. So this is just, again, maybe the Social Security, those different things, and to kind of break it down to think about like, when will we need to start thinking about that? So we have another resource here. This one is, again, just, it feels oftentimes overwhelming for parents and families to think about all these different things that we need to do in preparation for exiting education or thinking about their student becoming an adult. So this is maybe just to break it down into some reasonable steps, things that you may want to give consideration to during different time frames. So there's that eligibility piece again, 16 years old up at the top. And then looking at really during all those times where you really want to be able to get connected. So the next one, it's blue all the way through. So those little blue dots are showing you during the age that you might want to give consideration to that. So county board services are really, it's going to be across the ages as far as those recreation services, family support services, Social Security. You're going to see that one at 18. So when your child becomes an adult, they may be eligible for Social Security benefits, and it may really be something that you want to give consideration to. That will also determine the disability. So Social Security Administration will determine that disability, and that will be something that you will need to have possibly in place for them moving forward to obtain Medicaid. Or, when they're actually looking at working in the future, to have that already established for them as that sort of insurance, so to speak. So, and then some other things that you might want to just start thinking about, things that are going to be beneficial, maybe looking at accessing Lake Tran, and it's helpful to have a Golden Buckeye card, particularly for Lake Tran specifically. That's another way to get connected with them. Setting up a bank account, getting a state ID. So these are just some things to start giving some consideration to as, to break it down into reasonable steps. We talked a little bit about adult day services, and we have lots of different new terminology for everybody to learn. So this is a little cheat sheet for that. Explains what some of those different terms are. We say adult day services, or adult day support, or ADS, vocational habilitation, things like that. So this is giving some description on what that looks like. So, and again, as Katie was talking about, well, we have individuals that are going to move through those. So like adult day services, for instance, is going to be more recreation and leisure oftentimes, where people might go to a program that has vocational habilitation and that rec and leisure component, or they may just be doing strictly work. So there's a lot of different options, and we have that will be a part of our role is to assist you in exploring those different options. So I encourage people again to start really exploring those early on. I think that we don't oftentimes even have that visualization about what those programs really look like, or that there's, again, one in our neighborhood, or, so beginning that exploration, seeing where they're at. We have another presentation that's available, I believe, on our website that really just starts out with that map. Just where are they physically located? And then again, the different types of services that are available. So this is the page one of that. And then we also have, I don't think it's on here, but it's also just breaking down, it's giving you the names of the places and things like that. But again, it's our role to be able to assist you to explore those. We can set up tours for you, meet you over at one of the programs, and just go have a look. So definitely something that we want to be able to help with. So how do we keep all this straight, right? So we have all these different people in our lives, and that's how we really started off with this presentation to begin with. When we started last year, I think the question was actually posed by a parent. Like they didn't know who at the table to present the question to. And so it was like, well, who's who? How do we? So, you know, we're trying to help give you guys some cheat sheets for this kind of stuff. And who can do what, you know, and we're always here as a resource to help to identify what these different agencies can do for you and how they can help you. So one of those is an agency navigation tool. I'm not sure that that's in your packet, but we can definitely get you a link to it. There's a lot of information here. And as you can see, there's a lot of different agencies that are out there. You know, we had already talked a little bit about Social Security and OOD and things like that, but there's also Jobs and Family Services and, you know, the Ohio Department of Education. And for each of these different agencies, what's their role? How do they help? So this really gives a kind of a breakdown. And over on the right, you can see there's our little phone book, so to speak, of like how we could break some contacts down. So again, if you have an interest in this, we can absolutely send this out. We're going to post this on our website as well as a resource. So it's a lot, but it really does tell you who's responsible for what, who is it that you're going to pose different questions to, and how do they support the student. And as far as the transition supports, and this is something that we also utilize for our students, you know, they need to have their own cheat sheet, right? They need to have their own list of who's going to be available to them. So this is another resource for the different types, and this obviously could be added to as far as who might be in your students' lives. It could be a variety of people. Maybe there's somebody on a mental health team, for instance, or you know, some other community resource. So just breaking that down so that you have that information readily at hand. And then for individuals, depending on their own learning systems, you know, maybe something that's a little bit more visual is going to be helpful for them. So as we start to look at moving into adulthood, you know, who helps me with these things? Who, you know, so how do I get different things done, and who's going to help me? So really breaking this down in a way that's maybe manageable for somebody with a different learning style. Okay, we have some different tools for planning.
Who's who is next?
So who's
We wanna
who?
Go back to that. It was supposed to be the last
Oh, the
one.
one we have from before, sorry. There it is. They should not let me edit these at all. This is what happens, I'm telling you. So at any rate, this is another resource, again, with the links to directly county board, OOD, Jobs and Family Services. Yeah, so probate court, again, that would be for the guardianship process, Social Security Administration, and also the Adams board. So there are all those. So excuse me clicking through here again. I'm going to lose my editing privileges for sure. Okay.
And some additional tools, like Brenda had mentioned too. These weren't links that I had sent out, but we would be more than happy to share these resources with you. They're organization tools, they're different ways to plan. They're beneficial, or if they seem very overwhelming, we can help be part of your team and help you sort through all of these things as well. So these next few tools are organizational templates to start the thought process and planning for those services leading into adulthood. So there's some tools from Charting the Life course, and then there's also a backwards planning template. We do have a lot of community resources, so I think it's great to kind of tap into some of the tools or some of the resources that Brenda had mentioned, and even using these tools and templates for planning purposes as we're thinking about transitioning to services after school. This is part of the Charting Life course curriculum, and it's called an Integrated Supports STAR. It's hard to see, so I can provide you with the website link, or even just send it to your email, their website. But this tool is an organizational tool that talks about all of the people that are part of your young adults team. So if you can see, the bottom right is the eligibility specific team. So that's our county board team and OOD team, but we're not the only people that you can lean on for supports or that can be part of this young adults world. There are also some community-based members. There's technology, there's personal strengths and assets, and relationships. So for example, maybe technology could be some sort of remote support. So some sort of monitoring system that the individual has that they can use as a resource rather than having family with them at home. Some community-based supports could be friends at the library or going to a class in the community somewhere. So not only thinking of just the people who are right here, but expanding the supports that the young adult might have and might be able to tap into. This shows a really nice visual of those supports. So the green was our eligibility specific. So if you take a look at the day on the left, so this is an example of a day with just those eligibility specific supports. So just the green blob is one traditional program, and that's all the young adult may do. And then the second picture is kind of like an after picture, before and after picture, when after the team went through and talked about those integrated supports, some other things were put into place for this young adult. One is a volunteer experience, one is going to dinner with a friend. So thinking about all of those entities and those kind of natural supports in the young adult's life and how to kind of place them into to create and develop this meaningful and enriching day for our young adults as we're thinking about life after school. So those are just a couple visuals, but those are some tools through Charting the Life course. And the next tool is through the state of Ohio released this backwards planning template. Some of you may be familiar just from the planning process through school, through the IEP team. But it talks about the little tab at the top are outcomes. So outcomes for employment, daily living, and education and training. So those areas that we had talked about way at the beginning. And where the student currently is and the steps we want to take along the way to meet those goals and outcomes for them in those areas. So thinking backwards planning is thinking with the end in mind. So what is our ultimate goal? It could be employment. It could be participating in community activities. It could be volunteering, an adult program, whatever your goal is, thinking of that end goal, but what do we have to do to get there? We're not just going to jump right into it. There are some steps along the way and things we can plan for and do in order to successfully meet our goal. So this is just another organizational tool that is pretty helpful. And again, we can send these to you through the email, or we will be posting them to our website as well. And the next, I think, is a fun thing. Yeah. So we have been developing programs for our young adults. Julie had mentioned with our recreation department, but this one we are partnering with Services for Independent Living. So they're a community agency that helps support individuals with disabilities. And this class that we have is a youth empowerment group. And the wrong flyer is posted, but our next date is October 13th for our youth empowerment group. And it's a monthly class for our young adults who are eligible for county board services, ages 14 to 22. It's right here on our main campus, actually in this room we're in right now. And it's a class to help our young adults learn about self-advocacy and grow in their independent skills and learn some social skills and just get together with peers and learn and have fun in a very welcoming environment. So we have a youth empowerment group for our youngsters, and then across the hall we have a parent cafe. So parents are welcome to join. They'll have their own powwow, and then we'll have our youth empowerment group in this classroom setting over here. So we listed the dates. The next meeting is October 13th. If you're interested, please let us know. We would love to have more participants. And they're being held on the second Thursday of each month, all the way through next year, which is exciting. But the really, really fun event is this one coming up, is our Winter Wonderland event that we're partnering with the Recreation Department. It's on Thursday, December 8th. A lot of us here on Zoom and in the room are on our email chain, so I will be sending out more information via email, and it'll be posted to social media and everything. But this is our upcoming event where we have been partnering with the Recreation Department to do some family engagement activities to get our young adults interested in learning more about recreation services and being members of our Lake County Board of DD community. So that is our next fun upcoming event in the next couple months. And we'll share more information as it gets closer too. Oh, just kind of a wrap up slide where our contact information is on here again. And I think I list our website. We can even go over the website if we want. We can show you how to get to some of these resources on our county board website. Oh, there we go. So on our, oh, that was a direct link, but our main county board website is here with all these wonderful pictures. So underneath the services tab, if you scroll down to service and support administration, you can find both transition services, employment navigation services, and a lot of those eligibility services that we had presented at the beginning of our session. But if we click on transition services, here are some of those printable resources right at the bottom. So a lot that I had attached in the email are here. And there's even a couple more that we didn't talk about today, but we have the flyer for our youth empowerment group. And here is the Life After High School video that Brenda had referenced that talked about those adult day services. So if you have some free time, you feel free to check out our website. But it has a lot of good information, or if you have questions.
Oh, there's the resource. The resource tab for the family forums.
Oh, and the family forums. Yes, that's a great another tab. Yeah, Brenda had said too, these family forums, they're on a cycle of once a month or once every couple months, they have family forums and they are listed on our website as well. So underneath the resource tab, there's an archive of all the family forums going back, I think, through last year. And so they're recorded and they're posted here with all of the resources as well. So that's another great place to get more information. There's guardianship and alternatives, stable account and estate planning. There's a lot of great information on SSI and Medicaid. So some of these are Zoom, if they are titled Zoom session, they're a recorded session, and you can get a lot of good information from those. That's all for our formal presentation. So maybe.
So this, if we were successful recording, we're gonna turn that off now, but that will be posted eventually with all the resources you received tonight too. So if you have friends or family that, you know, missed tonight, but would like to hear this information, you can push them to that family forum website. So we're gonna stop recording, and I'm not sure we're really recording.